The Urgent Alliance. The day of the Grand Assembly at the headquarters of the mighty gorilla had arrived. The air was thick with tension and anticipation as representatives from every major gang gathered, each face etched with the weariness of recent battles and the desperation for survival. The swift, devastating attacks of the 10 great assassins had left their organizations in ruins, forcing them to seek refuge and aid in the formidable power of the mighty gorilla, the only gang that had successfully resisted the onslaught. The leaders knew that their only hope lay in forming a united front with the mighty gorilla. They had witnessed the gang's strength and resilience, which had not only survived but emerged victorious against the 10 great assassins. Now, they sought to join forces, pooling their remaining resources and strength to rebuild and defend against any future threats. The meeting hall of the mighty gorilla buzzed with an urgent need for cooperation. At the head of a long table stood Heis, the leader of the mighty gorilla. His presence commanded respect, and his strategic mind was widely acknowledged. The gang leaders took their seats, keenly aware of the significance of this gathering. In attendance were Mima, the fierce leader of the White Tigers, Ravi, the ruthless head of the Ruthless Jaguars, Draven, the formidable leader of the Red Lions, Ludi, the cunning leader of the Grey Wolves, and Ai, the imposing leader of the Wrestling Bears. Representing the Cunning Hyenas was a delegate, as their leader Boosie remained missing. Heis opened the meeting with a solemn tone. "We are gathered here today because we face a common threat. The 10 great assassins have wreaked havoc across our world, leaving no gang untouched. Alone, we are vulnerable. Together, we stand a chance." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement. Each leader had their story of loss and near annihilation at the hands of the 10 great assassins. They understood the dire necessity of this alliance. It was not just about survival, it was about reclaiming their strength and rebuilding their dominions. Mima, with his fierce eyes and commanding presence, spoke up first. "Our resources are depleted, our numbers halved. We need the might and strategy of the mighty gorilla to stand a chance. In return, we offer our loyalty and remaining forces." Ravi, his voice cold and calculating, added, "We have skilled fighters and strategic minds among us. If we combine our strengths with the mighty gorilla's unparalleled defense and Heis' leadership, we can turn the tide." Heis listened intently, his mind calculating the potential of this alliance. He knew that while the mighty gorilla was strong, the combined force of these gangs would create a formidable front. It was a tactical necessity to unite these fragmented groups under a common banner. Draven, his voice resonating with authority, declared, "We must unite not just for survival, but to reclaim our power and ensure that no gang will ever threaten us again. We need a coalition built on trust and mutual respect." Ai, with his imposing stature, added, "Our strength lies in our unity. Together, we can rebuild and stand stronger than ever before." The representative of the Cunning Hyenas, though uncertain of Boosie's fate, nodded in agreement, acknowledging the necessity of this alliance. Heis concluded the meeting with a resolute declaration: "We will forge this alliance and stand united. The 10 great assassins may be powerful, but they have underestimated our will to survive and our capacity to unite. Together, we will rebuild our strength and bring the fight to them." The leaders nodded in agreement, a newfound determination sparking in their eyes. This alliance was not just a necessity, it was a symbol of their resilience and unyielding spirit. The battle ahead would be fierce, but with the combined might of the allied gangs and the strategic leadership of the mighty gorilla, they stood ready to face the storm. The ascendancy of Heis. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the mighty gorilla headquarters, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of reverence and solemnity as the gang leaders came to a consensus. It was clear to them that survival and resurgence in the face of the 10 great assassins required not just unity, but decisive and centralized leadership. The only person who could provide this was Heis, whose strategic genius and proven resilience had already guided the mighty gorilla to victory. Mima, the fierce leader of the White Tigers, was the first to speak. "Heis, your leadership and strategic brilliance are unmatched. We believe that for this alliance to succeed, it must be guided by a single, strong leader. We propose that you lead us." Ravi of the Ruthless Jaguars nodded in agreement. Not only do we need a unified front, but we also need centralized decision-making. We will contribute 20% of our profits to the alliance, with all activities and decisions flowing through you, Heiss. Draven of the Red Lions added, this contribution isn't just a financial one. It's a symbol of our commitment and trust in your leadership. We need your vision to rebuild our strength and ensure our survival. Ai of the Wrestling Bears, known for his brute strength, looked Heiss in the eye and said, with you at the helm, Heiss, we can rebuild stronger than ever. We entrust you with the authority to oversee all gang operations and to appoint the leaders of our factions. Ludi of the Grey Wolves, always calculating and strategic, concluded, your influence, Heiss, is essential. We are ready to follow your lead, and we acknowledge your ultimate authority in all matters pertaining to this alliance. The representative of the Cunning Hyenas, in Boosie's absence, also gave a nod of agreement, signifying the collective support of their gang. Heiss stood before them, his presence commanding the room. He understood the weight of the responsibility they were placing on his shoulders. I am honored by your trust, he began, his voice steady and authoritative. Our unity is our strength. Together, we will rebuild and become a force that no one can challenge. Your contributions will ensure our mutual success, and I will lead with the resolve to bring us victory and prosperity. The gang leaders felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Heiss' influence was profound, his ability to inspire absolute confidence and loyalty evident in the way they looked at him. His strategic mind and unwavering commitment to the Alliance's success were exactly what they needed to navigate the tumultuous times ahead. Heiss' grand scheme. Heiss, also known as Eagle, leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile spreading across his face as he watched the gang leaders pledge their loyalty to him. His plan had come together flawlessly, and now he was poised to become the most influential and powerful figure in the criminal underworld. The genesis of Heiss' grand scheme could be traced back to the moment he first saw Rondu and Cuss confront Roos when Rondu was just 15. Heiss had been lurking in the shadows, observing the altercation with keen interest. Even then, he had recognized the potential in Rondu, a raw, untamed power that, if harnessed correctly, could help him achieve his ultimate goal, to manipulate and dominate the world of gangs, reigning supreme as its most feared and respected leader. From that day forward, Heiss made it his mission to monitor Rondu closely. He orchestrated events from the shadows, subtly guiding Rondu's path, ensuring that every significant event in Rondu's life played into his master plan. The confrontation with Roos, the devastating attack that led to Rondu's amnesia, and the emergence of Silverback were all meticulously crafted elements of Heiss' intricate design. Heiss knew that the key to manipulating Rondu was to exploit his dual nature. The creation of Silverback, a ruthless persona born from Rondu's trauma and the venom of the Blood Snake, was a stroke of genius. Heiss nurtured this persona, providing Silverback with the tools and the training to become a formidable enforcer. Under the guise of Eagle, he instilled in Silverback a sense of loyalty and purpose, convincing him that his violent actions were necessary for achieving a greater good. Heiss' vision of a world brought to order through chaos. As Rondu's memories began to resurface and his personalities started to merge, Heiss adjusted his strategy. He understood that the delicate balance between Rondu and Silverback could be both a weakness and a strength. By manipulating the timelines and the circumstances under which Rondu and Silverback operated, he kept Rondu off balance, ensuring that he remained under his control. The ultimate test of Heiss' plan came when he orchestrated the false battle between Rondu and the Silverback imposter. The deception was flawless, and the resulting confusion solidified Heiss' control over the gang world. With the fall of the 10 great assassins and the rise of the mighty gorilla, Heiss' influence grew exponentially. Now, as the gang leaders agreed to contribute 20% of their profits to the alliance and submit to Heiss' authority, he knew that his position was unassailable. He had successfully manipulated every major player in the underworld, positioning himself as the indispensable leader who could bring order to chaos. Heiss' grand scheme was not just about power, it was about legacy. He envisioned a world where his name would be synonymous with control, where his influence would be felt long after he was gone. The gang leaders, now his loyal subjects, would enforce his will, ensuring that his vision of a meticulously controlled criminal empire would endure. Reflecting on his journey, Heiss couldn't help but marvel at the intricate web of manipulation he had woven. Every betrayal, every alliance, and every death had been a calculated move in his grand chess game. And now, as he looked at the gang leaders seated around the table, he saw not adversaries, but pieces on his board, each one moving according to his will. Heiss' satisfaction was tempered by the understanding that his work was not yet complete. There were still threats to his dominion, loose ends that needed to be tied up. But with the alliance firmly under his control, he felt confident that he could handle any challenge that came his way. The world of gangs was his to command, and under his iron-fisted rule, it would be a world of order and unyielding power. The graceful fury of Rondu. The tension in the air was palpable as Rondu approached the entrance to the mighty guerrilla's headquarters. He knew that Heiss' goons would be a formidable obstacle, but his resolve was unshakable. As he neared the entrance, a lackey of Heiss approached him, whispering into his ear. Heiss' expression darkened, and the minion nodded before hurrying away. The guards at the entrance were on high alert, and they moved to block Rondu's path. "I am his son-in-law. I want to attend the meeting," Rondu declared, his voice calm yet firm. One of Heiss' men sneered, "No matter who you are, you're not allowed inside." "That's Heiss' order." He stepped forward and shoved Rondu. Rondu grabbed the man's wrist with lightning speed and delivered a powerful punch that sent the guard flying. Another thug rushed to intervene, only to be met with a swift kick to the head that knocked him out cold. Unfazed, Rondu continued toward the building, his movements fluid and elegant. His strikes were a deadly dance, each motion a blend of strength and precision. More of Heiss' men charged at him, their fists and feet a blur as they tried to overwhelm him. Rondu's demeanor remained serene as he parried and countered their attacks. His fists and feet moved with a lethal grace, each blow landing with surgical accuracy. One by one, his attackers fell, unable to match his skill and agility. In a matter of minutes, 10 of Heiss' guards lay defeated on the ground, their bodies crumpled and motionless. Rondu's heart pounded with the thrill of the fight, but his mind was focused and clear. He had no time to savor his victory, his goal was still ahead. With determined strides, he pushed open the doors to the meeting room. The gathered leaders of the underworld looked up in shock as Rondu entered, his presence commanding and unyielding. The unmasking of deceit. Rondu's voice rang out, "Heiss' eagle." A stunned silence fell over the room. The gathered leaders exchanged bewildered glances, trying to process the shocking revelation. They knew Eagle as the ruthless destroyer of their headquarters, and Heiss as the benevolent figure who had helped them rebuild. The idea that these two seemingly opposite figures were the same person seemed inconceivable. All eyes turned to Heiss, their expressions tinged with doubt. Heiss stood up and approached Rondu, his demeanor calm and composed. "What's wrong with you? Are you unwell?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. Turning to the gang leaders, Heiss continued, "I apologize. Rondu is having a mental breakdown. I'll personally see to it that he gets the help he needs." He reached out to guide Rondu out of the room. "Let's go." But Rondu remained rooted to the spot. "Stop pretending, Heiss. You've used me as a pawn to destroy the headquarters of these gangs. You've treated me as a mere puppet in your sinister scheme. You've been watching me all along. What should I call you? Heiss, Sunni, or Eagle? Let me make this clear to everyone. Heiss, Sunni, Eagle, they are all the same person." Heiss maintained his facade of innocence and humility. "Come now, Rondu. You've taken this joke too far." Ignoring him, Rondu turned to the gang leaders. "Do you know who I am? I am Silverback." The mention of Silverback sent a ripple of fear and anger through the room. Faces turned pale and expressions hardened. "I suffer from a dissociative identity disorder. He exploited my alternate personality and turned me into Silverback." Rondu's voice was steady, his gaze unwavering. "He killed my master. He is connected to the deaths of my two younger siblings. He has taken everything from me. The gang leaders were caught in a maelstrom of disbelief and suspicion. Heiss, still playing the part of the concerned ally, was beginning to show cracks in his veneer of calm. The room was thick with tension, and the air buzzed with the gravity of Rondu's accusations. Heiss, Rondu's voice was firm and filled with conviction. You have manipulated and deceived us all. Your ambition knows no bounds, and you will stop at nothing to achieve your goals. But your reign of terror ends here. Heiss's eyes flickered with a cold, calculating glint. The gang leaders looked between Rondu and Heiss, trying to piece together the truth. The room was electric with the potential for confrontation, the balance of power teetering on the edge. The stage was set for a final reckoning. Rondu, armed with his newfound clarity and strength, stood ready to face the man who had orchestrated so much pain and chaos. The fate of the underworld hinged on this pivotal moment, as the true nature of Heiss' machinations came to light. The unveiling of betrayal. The room remained shrouded in disbelief, uncertainty etched on every face. Heiss, maintaining his composed demeanor, spoke, I am very disappointed in you, Rondu. I have treated you well. I even gave my beloved daughter to you in marriage. How can you fabricate such an outrageous story? I am Heiss, and no one else. Suspicion hung heavy in the air as the gang leaders exchanged uncertain glances. Suddenly, a clear voice broke the tension. Father, don't let this mistake compound further. What Rondu says is entirely true. The room nearly erupted in shock as Flora, Heiss' daughter, stepped forward. She continued, you forced me to keep the truth hidden or you would kill Rondu. You made me promise not to reveal to Rondu that he is Silverback, threatening I would never see him again. Out of love for Rondu and fear of losing him, I complied. Rondu's heart shattered at the revelation. The woman he loved more than life itself had deceived him. Flora was his first and only love, the one to whom he had given his heart without reservation. The pain in his chest was almost unbearable as he looked at her, the tears streaming down her beautiful face. Father, Flora pleaded, turning to Heiss, please stop this. Let the truth be known. Rondu felt a deep ache, a mixture of love and betrayal. His affection for Flora was boundless, and now, that same love pierced his soul with agony. Despite her deception, his heart yearned for her. Her confession confirmed the truth, but it also tore at his very being. I am sorry, Rondu, Flora said, her voice breaking. I am really sorry. Rondu's eyes met Flora's, seeing the sincerity and regret in her tears. Despite the immense hurt, he could not bring himself to hate her. He understood the impossible position she had been placed in, torn between her love for him and fear for his life. Meanwhile, the gang leaders' faces hardened with anger as they absorbed Flora's words. The confirmation that Heiss was indeed Eagle, the mastermind who had wreaked havoc upon their organizations, ignited a fierce rage. Draven, the leader of the Red Lion gang, spoke first, his voice dripping with contempt. Heiss, you have manipulated us all. You have deceived us while pretending to be our ally. Ludi, leader of the Grey Wolf gang, added, we trusted you, and you used us to further your own twisted ambitions. This betrayal will not go unpunished. Mima of the White Tiger gang, Ravi of the Ruthless Jaguar, and Ai of the Wrestling Bear joined in, their expressions reflecting their shared fury. The room was charged with a collective desire for retribution against Heiss. Heiss' mask of calm began to crack under the weight of their collective condemnation. He tried to speak, to regain control, but the gang leaders were beyond listening. Their trust had been irrevocably shattered, and they were ready to make him pay for his treachery. Rondu, standing amidst the chaos, felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. The truth was out, but the cost had been immense. Flora's betrayal stung deeply, yet he could see her genuine remorse. Despite everything, his love for her remained, mingling with the bitter realization of the deception he had endured. The ice swords returned. Flora drew a sword from its scabbard, along with several sharp iron bars. This is your sword. And these are iron bars. I have kept all your weapons safe. It's time I returned them to you. Rondu took the sword in his hand, feeling its cold, sharp edge. The blade gleamed under the room's light, its keenness evident. This is the ice sword that was lost long ago. Finding it again is like meeting an old friend. The ice sword felt almost alive in Rondu's hand. Its blade shimmered with a deadly, icy brilliance, and its weight was perfect, balanced like a natural extension of his arm. Holding it, he felt a surge of power and familiarity, as if the weapon had always been a part of him. As Rondu admired the sword, a loud, sinister laugh echoed through the room, growing louder and more intense. Everyone turned to see Heis, the source of the laughter. The sound was deafening, almost as if it aimed to pierce through the eardrums of everyone present. Instinctively, they covered their ears. The laughter intensified, shaking the very air in the room. Heis stood at the center, his mirth growing more maniacal by the second. His eyes gleamed with a dark, unsettling amusement as if he reveled in the chaos and fear he had sown. The tyrant's justification. Heis' voice thundered through the room, as powerful as a raging storm. Yes, I am Eagle. So what? I have been orchestrating this plan for 12 years. I seek to build a world free of conflict through chaos and violence. When you use violence, I will respond with double the force. That is the principle of existence. Turning to Rondu, he continued, I have had to alter my plans countless times because of you, Rondu. Heis then addressed the gang leaders, his eyes blazing with fervor. My ideals have never been wrong. It is you who have instigated these bloody wars. Your gangs slaughter each other without end. I have witnessed a day doesn't pass without death. In this violent world, only the strong have a voice. I merely take your violence and return it tenfold. Heis' eyes narrowed. I am not like you. I wield violence as a tool, a means to an end. When the dust settles, only the strongest will remain, and they will enforce order. Heis' expression turned cold. Survival is all that matters in this world. I will break you down and rebuild you stronger. Your petty squabbles will end, and a new era will begin under my rule. Ludi of the Grey Wolf growled, and what of the innocent lives lost in your grand scheme? Are they just collateral damage to you? Heis' gaze was unflinching. Innocence is a luxury in this world. Sacrifices must be made for the greater good. I do not relish the deaths, but they are necessary. Heis laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the tense silence. You are naive, Rondu. Violence is the only language this world understands. If you wish to stop me, you will have to kill me. But know this, even if I fall, the seeds of chaos I have sown will continue to grow. Can you handle that burden? The room was charged with the weight of Heis' words. The gang leaders, though united against him, were now forced to confront the harsh realities of their world and their roles within it. Heis' justification for his actions hung in the air, a sinister testament to his warped sense of order. As the tension reached its peak, the leaders of the gangs knew they stood at a crossroads. The path they chose now would determine the future of their world, whether it would be one of continued strife or a new beginning forged from the ashes of Heis' tyranny. The cost of peace. Heis' voice echoed through the room, smooth and commanding. He had a way with words, a talent for manipulating minds. Many of the leaders seemed swayed by his arguments, nodding in agreement with his vision. Rondu couldn't stand it any longer. Don't use your manipulative skills to convince everyone to buy into your twisted ideals, Rondu shouted. There can never be peace built from chaos and violence. It's all lies to mask your true agenda. Heis smirked, unfazed. Do you know, Rondu? I admired your father, Ruda. He conquered 6 different nations through sheer force, uniting them under one flag. And what was the result? No more military alliances, no more wars. People lived in peace. Draven, the leader of the Red Lion, interjected, and what happened next, Heis? People lived in fear under a tyrannical regime. Is peace worth the price of resentment and oppression? Heis responded calmly, you fail to see the bigger picture, Draven. Everything has 2 sides. We must accept collateral damage in exchange for the greater good. Rondu's voice trembled with anger and sorrow. What about the death of my master, the murder of my 2 siblings, and the countless innocent lives lost to your misguided vision? Heist's gaze was cold and unwavering. The death of your master and siblings were unfortunate, but necessary sacrifices. The innocent lives lost are indeed tragic, but they were sacrifices for a greater purpose. Your master, Tammy, was a hindrance to my plans. His influence over you needed to be eradicated for you to reach your full potential. As for your siblings, they were casualties in a war they could not escape. Such is the price of progress. Rondu's heart ached as Heist continued, every great vision demands sacrifices. Your father knew that, and so do I. The peace that follows will justify the means. Ruda's legacy was built on blood, and it brought stability. My vision will do the same. Rondu clenched his fists, his knuckles white with tension. You speak of peace, but all you bring is more pain and suffering. You cannot justify the deaths of the innocent as a means to an end. Heist shrugged. History is written by the victors, Rondu. Those who fall along the way are often forgotten, their sacrifices overlooked. But the world that emerges from the ashes will remember the peace we create. Ruda's rule was harsh, but it was effective. My methods are no different. Draven stepped forward, his voice firm. We will not be pawns in your game, Heist. You cannot control us with your twisted logic. Heist's eyes narrowed. Control is not my goal. Order is. You may resist now, but eventually, you will see the wisdom in my vision. The room was silent, the air thick with tension. Rondu looked at the leaders, hoping they would see through Heist's lies. The weight of his words hung heavy, a reminder of the true cost of Heist's ambition. Unmasking the truth. The room grew silent as Rondu continued, his voice steady and filled with resolve. The leaders of the gangs, who had seemed convinced by Heist's arguments, now turned their attention fully to Rondu. He knew he had to change his approach to sway their hearts and minds. Driven, Rondu began, locking eyes with the leader of the Red Lion. How long did it take you to build the Red Lion? Driven hesitated, then answered, more than 10 years. Rondu nodded and turned to Mima. And you, Mima? How long did it take you to build the White Tiger? Mima quickly replied, at least 8 years. Next, Rondu addressed Ravi. Ravi, do you remember when you started building the Ruthless Jaguar? Ravi furrowed his brow, around 9 years ago. Rondu's gaze then settled on Heist. All of you have spent years, pouring your blood and sweat into building your gangs, forging bonds of loyalty and camaraderie. Yet in one night, Heist managed to destroy everything. He turned to Ludi, the leader of the Grey Wolf. Ludi, how many of your men did you lose in the fight against the 10 great assassins? Ludi bowed his head, his voice heavy with sorrow. More than 100. Rondu then looked at Ai, the leader of the Wrestling Bear. Ai, did you lose any blood relatives or close friends in the recent battles? Ai sighed deeply. I lost a brother and 2 close friends. Rondu pointed at Heist, his voice rising with conviction. Look at him. He sent the 10 great assassins to slaughter your people without a second thought. The blood of your brothers and sisters stained your headquarters, their lives taken in excruciating pain. They didn't die quickly, they suffered. Who is responsible for these deaths? It is him, Heist, Sunni, or Eagle, whatever name he chooses to hide behind. He took a step closer to the leaders, his eyes burning with intensity. Heist talks about peace, but his peace is built on the graves of your loved ones. He manipulates and deceives, twisting ideals to suit his own ends. He speaks of order, but all he brings is chaos and death. The room was thick with tension as Rondu's words hung in the air. He could see the flicker of doubt in the eyes of the leaders, the realization of their shared grief and loss beginning to surface. Rondu continued, do not be swayed by his rhetoric. His vision is one of domination, not unity. He will continue to use you, to exploit your pain for his own gain. You must stand together, not under his rule, but as free men and women who fight for true peace and justice. Draven, Mima, Ravi, Ludi, and Ai looked at each other, the weight of Rondu's words settling in. Heis, or Eagle, whatever name he chose, was not their savior. He was their oppressor, the orchestrator of their suffering. Heis, sensing the shift in the room, tried to regain control. You misunderstand me, Rondu. Everything I did was for the greater good. But the leaders were no longer listening. Rondu had revealed the truth, and with it, the fragile mask of Heist's lies began to crumble. The final challenge. The atmosphere shifted from tense to outright hostile as the gang leaders rose in unison. Draven spoke up, his voice filled with disdain. There will be no alliance. We will never join forces with our enemy. We will remember everything you've done. With that, all the leaders stood and began to leave the headquarters of the mighty gorilla. Heist's eyes burned with fury as he stared at Rondu. You've ruined my plan, he shouted. I won't let you leave here alive. In a flash, Heist lunged at Rondu with a powerful punch. Anticipating the attack, Rondu was ready. He countered with his own punch, and their fists collided, creating a shockwave that shattered the glass in the room. Rondu staggered back 2 steps, feeling a tingling sensation in his hand. Pointing at Heist, he declared, You are the one who killed Cuss. I recognize your punch. Heist, seething with rage, replied, Anyone who stands in my way must die. As Heist prepared to launch another attack, Rondu interrupted, Wait. Today is not the day for our battle. Meet me at Mount Evi in 3 days. Without waiting for a response, Rondu retrieved the ice sword and the iron bars. He turned to leave, but not before glancing back at Flora. She sensed the impending separation but was torn between her love for her husband and her loyalty to her father. Tears streamed down her face as Rondu's silhouette faded into the distance. Heist, left fuming in the aftermath of the confrontation, knew that the final showdown was inevitable. The gang leaders, now disillusioned with his manipulations, had departed, leaving him to face the consequences of his deceit.